Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning again. Welcome to the October 14th County Commission meeting. I would remind you to silence your cell phones. The meeting documents are on the end of the counter next to Commissioner Kelly. And if you need listening assistance, Ken is in the front row and he can help you with that.
Routine business. Item 1 is consider a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second to approve the agenda. Any amendments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Item 2 is to approve the County Commission minutes of October 7th, 2014.
Move the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Item 3 are bills to be paid in the amount of $283,107.03.
Do we have a motion on the
Pay the
bills?
bills.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments on the bills? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Item 4 are reports. The Minnehaha County Sheriff's Report for September 2014, the Auditor's Account with the County Treasurer as of September 30th, 2014, and the Juvenile Detention Center Statistical Report for September 2014 have all been received and are placed on file in the Auditor's Office. Item 5 is personnel actions. A is consider a motion to approve the routine personnel actions.
Is there a motion for personnel?
Move for approval.
Second.
Are there any questions for HR? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Item 6 are application for abatement. And Pam Nelson is not here.
He's got a meeting at 9
She has
o'clock.
a meeting?
So,
Okay, there's been one abatement received, and it was for an elderly tax freeze. And Pam Nelson supports the abatement.
Register ID number is 28784. Property tax abatement's $289.
I'll make an elderly motion.
second.
I have a motion and a second to abate this. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
There are no notices and requests, and there are no planning and zoning notices. The next item is petition for compromise of lien. John Peckus.
Thank you, Cindy. This is on DPNO number 85708 in the amount of $740.50. And we all received this briefing memo. This is one of those unique circumstances where a family member, but a family member by law, an in-law, actually made a request for emergency involuntary hold for a family member in law. And those actions actually resulted in a payment that need to be assessed. That payment actually is applied to the family member, but state statute doesn't allow us to apply those for in-law situations. So in this particular instance, this was misplaced and done incorrectly when we attached the lien to this particular in-law that actually had their relative placed on an IVC hold. So mea culpa, we should remove this lien.
Make a motion to do that.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to remove the DPNO 85708 in the amount of $740.50. Are there any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next one is on DPNO number 51086 in the amount of $4,354.29. This action came up previously, and what was discovered is that there was actually another lien that was not noticed at the last event, and so looking at that, looks like we have an inclusion of another amount that actually was not included. So in this particular instance, once again, looking at the facts in this particular circumstance, this individual is actually looking at having his lien remitted. He was asking for it to be remitted in full without any payment. The county actually took the position that we wanted 50% to be paid, and currently the house that they're wishing to purchase is about $165,000, and the applicants have to pay $2,500 at the closing. And of course, we all know that this is going to be a challenge for them. The bills were essentially public defender and poor relief services between the years 2003 and 2013. And of course, we have this new lien that was just included. The narrative, of course, describes the financial struggles of this particular family as well as a subsequent bankruptcy filing. But ultimately, they've moved forward with their education. They've gone ahead, gotten some degrees. They've actually gotten full-time employment. And now they've become eligible for South Dakota first-time home buyers. So this is an opportunity for them to really turn the corner. And although we submitted it at 50%, which was, I believe it was, the lien compromise was 50% or $2,177.15 that had to be paid within at least the next year. Of course, they're asking for, once again, the release in full. And I know that I believe our chairwoman has some comments that she'd like to share as well. Yeah?
That's been revised to 25% instead of 50. So if they're offering a payment of $1,088.57, that's the reason that it's come to you as a new offer.
$1,088.50?
57 cents.
57?
Yep.
And an additional 1/4 of the undiscovered heretofore lien as well.
All right, and that 1/4 was how much, George?
$11.93, so call it $300 for a simple number.
All right, 300. So it'd be $1,388.57. Well, 1,400?
To the nearest.
1400.
All right. Well, I'll make a motion
Okay.
for 14.
I have a motion for 14.
I'm sorry,
Is there a second?
for 14 what?
For $1,400 payment
I'll
on
second
this.
that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for $1,400 on this lien. I do have a comment, but is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this? Want to stand up and identify yourself, please?
For the record, I'm back again. George Hahn. I'm a realtor in Sioux Falls representing the petitioner, and your motion would be acceptable. The thing that kind of bit us in the bottom on Friday is when Robert called me and sent me an email. Said, George, guess what? Under the lady's SS prior married name, they had found this other lien dating back to 1993. So we're going to bite the bullet, figure out how to do it, and we'll find a way. This couple has worked very hard, sacrificed a great deal, used every dime they had out of a tax return to finish their education, pay as much of it as they could, so they didn't get burdened with horrendous student loans, although they have student loans they're obligated for. This is a step up, gets them out of a house I cannot describe the condition of, even though it has been sold. It should be bulldozed, but that's George Hahn's opinion.
I think most of these comments we heard last time.
I appreciate your patience. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay. Is there anyone else that wants to speak on behalf of this? And I had a comment. That is, if you look back on what the charges were for, all of the public defenders except for maybe $230 have been paid. So when there was a public defender charge, there was a public defender paid. Most of the charges that are on this list are for poor relief services, and that's the point that I wanted to make, is that this person has tried to pay all of their public defender fees. So, are there any other comments on this lien? Commissioner Benega.
I will support it because of the clarification, but I guess I'm a little bit grumpy, frankly, about the fact that I think originally we were told that all of this was in reference to a child's identity theft, and there isn't one of these charges that has anything to do with identity theft, and it's been going on for multiple years. Disorderly conduct, DWIs, no insurance, simple assault, DWI, driving while suspended, resisting arrest, operating a vehicle without a license, criminal trespassing. I mean, we have to have accurate information when these things are presented to us in the first place. And it's not our staff's fault that was the way it was presented. So I'm glad that it's getting cleared up, but I think that in some form we need to have a more accurate application of what some of the charges are before we get those here, because there's a huge difference to me between someone who needs help with services that they can't provide, or if they've had medical issues or whatever, versus 9 years of, frankly, criminal charges. So, end of my sermon.
And I think that was the point that, the point that I made too, is that these were for poor relief and that his public defender fees have been paid in the past. So.
But that's not the way it was presented.
Right, that is not the way it was presented last week. So, are there any other questions or comments? I have a motion and a second on the table to compromise for $1,400. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Motion passes 4-1.
Yep, that was for both.
That's for
that was
both
with the
liens,
motion.
yes.
Yep.
Okay.
The next item is an opportunity for public comment.
This is a time when anybody who is not on the agenda may speak to another matter. Anybody? All right. Mr. Hahn.
George Hahn again. I've gotten liens compromised before. I'll probably do it again in my professional capacity. But when I look at the process of the county aiding somebody, that is his duty under the state constitution. The county is very good here about doing that because we have the resources to do it. However, every other debt in the state has a maximum statute of 20 years. Why should not a county aid lien have a statute of 20 years? Simply because the county goes in every 10 or 12, 15 years, expunges those that are way old to get them off the books and clean up the records of the county. I don't know what kind of an amendment to the laws that requires. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a realtor, but it's something that I think should at a point be considered. The only thing that has no statute is a capital offense, and certainly a county aid lien is far from that. So just a thought for...
Yeah, Ken McFarland has a comment because we do take care of some of these. Ken, if you would just come up and lay it out how we do it.
Right now, state law does have a time limit on a lot of these things, and they passed this a few years ago of 30 years. And so we have gone back and have cleaned up some of that record, for 30. And as a result, we come to you with annual actions to try to clean up some of those really old ones that we've had no activity on or anything else pursuant to that. But so it's a 30-year is what the legislature had contemplated.
Ken, do you remember right off the top of your head the number that we took off the books this last year and what we still have outstanding?
What we have
Roughly.
outstanding is $36 million, I believe. Oh, $66 million. Yeah, I'm off by 30.
And you don't remember what we took off the books this last year?
It's a substantial amount of money.
Yeah.
And it's something that, again, we do annual actions to try to clean up some of these older liens and, with certain categories and liens with people who have passed away and that we know of that, so it's a whole list of things that we do.
Okay.
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you. Commissioner
when I
Beck.
first started practicing, I had a probate, and one of the liens that was being carried was a $30 coal assistance for heat during the Depression. So, they're out there. I know what you mean.
Getting better. Okay.
George,
Thank
you might have
Mr.
heard
Hahn.
that before. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think you did. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Move on to regular business.
Regular business item number 10 is consider a resolution to authorize Minnehaha County's participation in the FY 2015 South Dakota Department of Agriculture County Site Analysis Program. Paul Kosboth and Lynn Keller-Forbes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Lynn Keller-Forbes. I'm the Executive Director of the Southeastern Council of Governments, which is one of 6 planning districts across the state of South Dakota. Probably about a year or so ago, the Department of Agriculture got involved with working with the planning districts to go into our counties and do an analysis so that they could do a better job when they had folks that were trying to site animal feeding lots, some of those kinds of things as well. A pilot project was done in Lincoln County. I believe you got a copy of that. We have also worked with Clay County to complete theirs as well. And Union County's next on our list, and now we're kind of working with the other counties to see if it's something you're interested in as well. There is no cost to you. The Department of Ag will pick up all of the costs in working with our time and services. But with me today is Paul Kospa, who's the Director of Ag Development for the Department of Ag, and he'll give you kind of a little bit more in depth of what this would entail.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Paul Kosboth, Director of Ag Development, and thought maybe I'd just give you a little bit of history of the program and kind of how the process works, and then see if I can maybe answer any questions. When I started with the department a little under 2 years ago, I heard of this work that was done in 3 different counties, Grant, Moody, and Brookings. There was this type of GIS work, but it was focused specifically for those counties on trying to find sites that fit larger dairies because they have such an opportunity for dairies there with their processors. And when I heard about that, I immediately thought this type of an opportunity, instead of focusing on specific industry, we need to turn this into something that's a tool for counties to use. We always want to support local control, and I thought this is a great way to do it. So we started working at how does that look? How do we provide a program that a county, if they're so inclined, can use, where we maybe can come in and help map out based on setbacks, roads, infrastructure, aquifers, all of the different things that pertain to siting any type of facility in their county. How do we make that help them more proactively determine what might make sense in the county and where they would like to see it? So our goal with this is to do exactly that. Provide you with the information, a report much like what you saw that Lincoln County received. It just outlines kind of where some of the areas are for not just concentrated animal feeding operations or animal livestock type operations in general, but also industrial development that's ag-related, if that's manufacturing, processing, or whatever it might be. So we look at both areas. We come in and provide the report, as you saw that Lincoln got, and then with your blessing, we'll reach out to the landowners that were identified of the sites that were found confidentially in respect to the landowners. That's all kept extremely confidential. Reach out to them, and we just ask if they're interested in learning more. And some will say they certainly are. Others will say, no, I'm not interested in doing anything on my land, and we absolutely respect that. And then we just move forward based on what the county would like us to do, the commission, and what the landowners feel is right on their specific parcels. So it's county-driven, and then it's landowner-driven, and our goal is to find out what you think makes sense here, where those sites are that are potentially available based on the landowner preference, and then we try to help you find those types of facilities or projects. So that's kind of the background and the process as we see it, in a very condensed version. But are there any questions that I could answer on what the goal is here?
Any questions for Paul? Commissioner Peckus?
Thanks, Paul. I think this is a really exciting program, and I guess one of the issues that, of course, comes up when we have CAFOs in Minnehaha County is that literally every large animal operation is usually adjacent to some water source. Back 100 years ago, everybody wanted to be next to water when they were setting up their livestock operations. And so, of course, the next other department that usually has a vested interest is the DENR. You know, is your program going to work hand in glove with DENR? Is it just a recommendation to the counties, and then we still have to deal with the DENR on some other level?
Great question. Thank you. We work very closely with DNR and also DOT. So when a project comes up or a potential site, what we'll do is reach out to them and say, okay, from your perspective, what do you see for any potential challenges?
Great.
Anything out in rural community, especially if it's on a township road, that's going to be a challenge. So then we work with DOT. Well, let's see what the road structure is. Let's see what would need to be done for a project to work.
You answered my question. Thank you. Phenomenal.
Any more questions for Paul? Commissioner Barth?
I guess I just would like to comment that, you know, it's not really well understood around the state of South Dakota, but Minnehaha County is number 5 in the state for ag income. Before the last drought, I think we were number 3. And there was just a large article in the Argus Leader about Skunk Creek and cattle standing in the creek. The fact is that, you know, with the large rainfall that we had earlier this back in June, virtually all the waste product from these cattle is now approaching New Orleans, whereas the storage facilities at CAFOs were able to contain it. None of them ruptured and caused additional problems. So, you know, I think there is a misunderstanding that Minnehaha County is all Sioux Falls and that CAFOs are dangerous. And I think with prudence and with planning, we can overcome any issues that are out there.
I think the number of cattle standing in streams is probably much less than it was 20 years ago. I don't know that for a fact, but like you say, more animals are in CAFOs now where they're containing that than they used to be.
Well, Madam Chair,
Commissioner Peckus.
you know, we just this last weekend I drove down to Orange City for my son's band competition. We're driving, you know, down there through Hill and Dale through Iowa, and it was very noticeable to me the difference between the regulation in Iowa of CAFOs as opposed to South Dakota. Because you drove by South Dakota CAFOs, couldn't smell a thing. You get into Iowa, and it's a totally different world. So anyway, I think South Dakota does it right. I think this is a really exciting program because I think they're approaching it absolutely correctly. So.
Any other questions for Paul? Is there a motion? This is to consider a resolution to authorize Minnehaha County to participate.
That would be my motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Item 13 is consider an appeal of a decision by the Minnehaha County Planning Commission to approve agricultural tourism permit 14-01 to allow a home winery at the property legally described as the southeast quarter, except the north 180 feet, east 220 feet, and except the south 1,111.29 feet, except the 220 feet, and except the west 99 feet, except the 394.16 feet south, 295.16 feet, and H1 and H2 of Section 16, Township 101 North, Range 51 West. Kevin Hochman.
Hi, Kevin Hookman, County Planning Department. This is a request to consider the appeal of the County Commission decision to approve ag tourism permit number 1401. The first appeal was from the petitioner, and we received a second appeal from a neighbor of the petitioner. Since then, the petitioner has withdrawn his appeal and has noted he would comply with the conditions. And we've also received a letter noting some conditions that were agreed to between the two, the property owner and the neighbor. But for a little bit of background of what the site is going to be entailing, it's to allow a home winery on the site. It's located about 5.5 miles west of Sioux Falls at Wall Lake Corner, or near Wall Lake Corner. At the corner, there is nearby commercial property right at the corner, and he's a little bit off, but you can see it from his driveway, the gas station there. And if you look to the west, you can see ag fields and large plots. Nearby, there are a concentration of residential units, housing to the east and also to the south, to the lake itself. The site will require 1 acre of fruit, and that is planned to be planted between the property, the yard, and the highway, going roughly here. The winery itself will be conducted in the former residence, which will include tasting, production, and sales of the wine. This will also include some events, be it private and public events, which will be held mostly on the yard, just to the west of the house. And there's some views of that. There will be parking allowed on kind of the driveway area, the existing driveway, as well as to the east of the property in what's now a cornfield. Overall, the conditions included, there were 19 conditions that were approved. The conditions that were accepted in the letter that was received would change conditions number 6 and number 8, and it would add 1 additional conditions. The letter requests that any private or public events of the winery shall not exceed 225 people and 75 cars, and that would change conditions number 6 and 8 to lower the number of people and number of cars, and that the west half of the property, or the west 200 feet of Rich and Laura's property, which is next to Harry's east property line, shall be left natural grassland or cropland, which would be a new condition altogether. So, on that.
Are there any questions for Kevin?
Well, what?
Commissioner Kelly.
Yeah, maybe I missed it. The signage was an issue, right?
The sign is coming
and
off.
It's still, that's still in the conditions of the...
The signage was an issue. It was, at the Planning Commission, it was discussed and it was approved of 32 square feet, which does not include the roof area, so the sign will have to come off.
And do you know when that sign was put on? The reason I ask is I'm looking at the pictometry, which was taken in May, and I don't see it on the building. Now, maybe it doesn't show up, but...
It was put on in about mid-September. I do have a dated picture of this year.
Okay.
Yeah. I do have a dated picture of that if we need it.
No, that tells me what.
Sure.
Any other questions for Kevin? Okay. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to the new conditions? Is anybody that would like to speak in favor of them? Okay. Back to the commission. This would change the conditions that they have. There are a total of 17. Yep. If you want, you got to come up here and introduce yourself. Yep.
I'm Mike Seifer, 26443 461st Avenue. This is my neighborhood. I'm also a resident in this area. This is my neighborhood, like I said. My concern was what you're looking at, and I think it is addressed that sign will be removed. And by removed, I hope that doesn't just mean painted over, so it'll eventually fade and show up again. Because this technically, the reason we're so strict on the signage on this is that with the special conditional use permit, the signage is 32 square foot. It's not 432 square feet. And I'm glad to see the commission is supporting that. The other thing is there's this property also, when you come before and you ask for a conditional use permit, everything comes into play. On the August 21st Argus Leader, there was an article regarding the Larsons that said where he sold his property to Wheel City Motor, which displaced their Z-Coil shoes business, that said, well, we will be moving our Z-Coil shoe business to our Wall Lake Farm, which is this site. And I don't know if Scott or anybody has seen a conditional use permit for a large home occupation regarding this, but that's a totally different business and should also be, at some point, should be addressed.
At this point, we're talking about the winery.
Yes, I know, we are, but I'm just bringing that up because it was in the Argus Leader, and sure enough, there's a Z-Coil. You can see a Z-Coil shoe trailer probably right there in the background. But regarding the zoning on this, it is appropriate. The thing that we did make quite a few allowances, I feel, on this, because if you look at that, there is no grapes on this facility, there is no fruit planted, and there should. And also the other thing was we required the federal permit, and those which a winery has to have, and those permits should all be in place before he's allowed to conduct retail business. That is just all our other wineries around the county. When they come to us, they've usually had grapes in the ground 2 years. They usually come in at the end of the second year so that they can process and sell their grapes in the third year. So I think we've already made plenty of allowances on this deal, and the other conditions that we had set forth are appropriate.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Commissioner Barth.
I just would comment that selling liquor is one thing, but selling lemonade is another, and that all you need for that would be the state sales tax license.
Okay. The petition, if you want to speak, you have to come forward. Kevin, did you have a comment?
One more comment I would like to say is that ag tourism is a permitted special use in the county. So other than the sign, everything that he has presented to the planning department has been followed that process as a special use. So we could have permitted it as he presented it minus the sign. So
I think one more person wants to speak. Could identify yourself and your address, please.
Hi, my name is Rich Larson. I'm the owner of the property of 46284 265th Street in Hartford. Just a couple comments to the intent of the former speaker and with all due respect to the gentleman on the Planning Commission Board. I just want to simply say that this winery will be conducted in the proper manner. I think people have concerns of how many people are going to be on the property. Listen, I live here too. Last thing I want to do, gentlemen, is create a nuisance for my home. I have invested into this. There was a lot of reasons why I did this, and there was a reason why I put that sign. Or we're calling it a sign now. I can't fight anymore. I felt that I was doing something in the favor of drink milk. I felt I was doing something, eat beef. I thought I was doing something, pork, the other white meat. I thought I was pretty much promoting a South Dakota product through South Dakota Ag Tourism. I really, if I thought that was going to be a sign, I would have made it a sign. I decided to not be heard on this and agree with what they said to do because it's not worth the fight. But my gosh, it opens up a can of worms because you drive around Minnehaha County. I did not make up this idea. I seen it before. I seen it on farms. And farmers sell cattle. They promote their beef, you know, and everything like that on historic rooftops. That rooftop's a historic building. I didn't want to tear it down. So that being said, we, with all due respect to my neighbor, Harry, I'm glad Harry came forth and had some questions and concerns, and we addressed those. But just letting you know that we certainly hope that this winery will be a fantastic addition to Minnehaha County. I will do my best to promote that product in our state and continue to run a winery of exemplary conduct and continue to do a nice job. I thank you so much for being heard on this. I appreciate it, Commissioners.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Larson? Just one more I have a comment, and that is that I didn't like the 2 additional conditions that were added. I'm not going to ask they to be removed because both parties have agreed to them, but I don't think it was necessary to have a federal, to reiterate the fact that there was a federal permit necessary because that already is a law, and I don't think we need to have it restated that it's a law when he was already aware of that. So that being said, is there a motion to approve?
I would move to approve. Tell me if I'm doing this right. Okay. Move to approve with the stipulations.
Be a motion to approve the original planning commissions with 2 additional, actually 3 additional. There'll be a change on item number 6. The winery will not exceed 250 people, and item number 8, which changes it to 75 cars, and also there'll be an additional number 18, the west 200 feet of Rich and Laura's property, which is next to Harry East property line, will be left natural grassland or crops. Does that explain it to you? Okay.
Second.
Commissioner Benega. I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Benega.
Did you say 250?
That's 200 feet, excuse me. I did say
225 in the agreement, I think.
Oh, 225. 225 people and 200 feet from the property.
Correct.
Get that right now? Okay. I have a motion and a second. Are there any other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Good luck with your winery.
Thank you.
Item 12 is a presentation of the Sioux Empire Fair Association's report on the 2014 Sioux Empire Fair. Scott Wick.
Good morning, Scott Wick, Sioux Empire Fair.
We should discuss that personnel. Executive personnel.
Okay, you all have the presentation in front of you. The first slide is just aerial photo of one of the days at the fair. It was taken right above the new Pipestone Discovery Barn, and which was a great addition to the fair. The second slide, if I remember correctly, going ahead, is the attendance. Overall, we were very pleased with the attendance with 4.5 days of rain. It did have an adverse effect on the fair and the attendance. We were down 8.6%. If I remember that correctly, 23 or 26,000 people we were down by. But the days that were nice, people were at the fair, were attending it. They were out there spending money, seeing all the attractions, and taking in all the rides and the food and everything that we had to offer. Days that were rainy really forced people into the Pipestone Discovery Building, and that place was packed much of the time with, like I said, with the rain, and people were there to see the baby pigs being born, feeding the bottle calves, anticipation of the dairy cattle to give birth, and that building was all a very hands-on experience. As the baby pigs were being born, there was a representative from Pipestone Air that was actually taking the pigs, holding them up. People could see them as they were. It doesn't get much more real than that. So it was very interesting to see all the parents and all the kids there taking part in that as that was taking place. And I didn't memorize every slide, so I'm going to...
Scott, while that's coming up, did you take that picture using the drone that I saw out there?
One of the drones, yes.
Okay.
I actually had a professional group come in and do stills and live video, and then took some with mine as well. All while staying compliant with the approach to the airport.
That drone was actually following you around from home.
It's not paranoid. I thought that was the halo.
A halo.
Technical difficulties. Do you want to use an iPad and just go through what's on there? You want to just use an iPad and you can
use mine. I got it right here.
And we have a hard copy too, Scott. There you go.
Okay.
Okay, we got it.
That one.
Yeah, we can. That's fine.
I'll just have to arrow down. All right, anyway, that was the aerial photo with the drone, taken right above the Pipestone Discovery Building facing north, so that was a nice photo to have. We got a lot of nice pictures and some video using that technology. As I said, fair attendance, we had a grand total of 280,985, down 8.6%. From 307,000 roughly in 2013. Average daily attendance was 30,740. A couple pictures there. We have the rodeo, all the fans for the Scotty Mercury concert. And this year was our 75th anniversary, so we kicked off the sneak peek night, which is free admission. So to go along with the 75th anniversary, we had, of course, our ribbon cutting, free admission. We had the anniversary cake. First 2,000 people got cake. Pig calling contest, pie eating contest, and a newlywed game. Just some of the games that they would have at the fairs of the earlier days. So there's a couple pictures there of the pie eating contest, and then a picture of, looks like everybody got into the picture except me. So I was off doing something else. We're very proud to continue educating the community. As always, we have Pioneer Lane, the safety village that has the safe house, the power fire, and those safety activities, as well as Old McDonald's Farm. South Dakota corn growers bring their interactive trailer and talk about corn production, everything that corn ends up in and how crucial that is to South Dakota. The livestock shows and horse shows. We have cooking competitions, the model train exhibitor, Avera's mobile mammogram truck is there, and then we have the demonstrations by the Society of the Creative Anarchism, which is rather interesting as well. A couple pictures of the safety village. They had the firefighters come in and do the burn trailer. One side has sprinklers, one does not, to illustrate the importance of having sprinklers in a building. And the bottom right picture is kids that are milking the wooden cow at the Pipestone Discovery Building. Now, the Pipestone Discovery Barn in itself, as I said before, is a huge learning opportunity with chickens laying eggs, chickens hatching, bottle-fed calves. Sows farrowed during the fair hours. We also had closed-circuit TV in there recording in case there was a birth during the night when nobody was there. They could replay it the next day. We had dairy cows that had baby calves, think of Farmer Magic Show, and a tremendous amount of volunteers that were there to help out with that. And with Sylvia Walters and Pipestone's participation, they have an agreement with SDSU. They were down, and SDSU students were the educators at all these stations as well to help educate the public and the kids on what was going on. There's a picture there in the bottom left of Sylvia with a newborn baby pig, baby chicks. And then the far right picture is the TV showing what else is going on. So when all this is going on and there's 20 people deep around it, there really isn't a bad seat in the house with the technology and the cameras that were there. This is the third year of the extended fair. And with the weather we had, it definitely proved to be the right option. If we were a typical Tuesday through Sunday, with Tuesday through Friday being rain all day long and a little bit of rain on Saturday, one of the slides you're probably most interested in would look very different when we get to that as far as the outcome of the revenues for the fair. We had to cancel the Beach Boy concert on Wednesday night because of safety issues and rain. Carnival didn't open until 6 p.m. on Wednesday, mid-afternoon on Thursday. Wet conditions affected other attendance. The rodeo was well attended despite the rain, and like I said, the 10-day fair was it definitely proved to give us those extra days in case we did have that bad weather. As always, we strive to bring in and do as many upgrades ourselves or through volunteer groups. The biggest was a Pipestone Discovery Barn. We replaced an end wall on a dairy barn, added trees and bushes to Pioneer Lane. We had a collaborative effort with the Cosmopolitans. We now have a handicap accessible asphalt road from the grandstand area out to the east parking lot, which was very well received and worked out very nicely. Asphalt was added to the east side of the multi-purpose building along with a driveway for that parking lot. Various water hookups and electrical were rerouted, upgraded some equipment, and traded into very tired skid steers for one new one this year. As always, great sponsorships, great volunteers. Businesses donated time, resources, and monetary amounts to help make the fair a success. Sponsors helped out Senior Citizen Day, Agricultural Appreciation Day, and Ag Rules. Volunteers helped in painting, cleaning, and informational services. And as you can see in the picture, I believe that is the very wet Ag Appreciation Day that Cindy heads up. So that was wet, but a very good time, tons of volunteers, and a lot of people enjoyed that. This year we had a promotion called Camtastic Thursday. If you brought 3 non-perishable food items, you got $10 off your Carnival wristband. All that food was donated to Feeding South Dakota, who in turn told us that they gave it to the Sioux Falls Food Pantry. Right around 2,600 pounds of food was collected and donated, and 50% of that benefits area children. Third year with the same Murphy Brothers Exposition, Carnival, weekly specials, no roller coaster this year, but increased rides. Some of the same family entertainment on the ground, Santa Claus, Double Vision, Six Appeal, Bob Bone Family Magic Show, Thank a Farmer, Sherwin-Litton, other various activities. There's some pictures there of the canines in flight, and of course Phil Baker's always somebody we have every year as well. For next year, we're already working on changing these up. We like to keep them for 3 years at a time, then bring in some new entertainment. Exhibitors, we had a total of 388 head for FFA for open livestock, 469 for 4-H livestock, 1,018 art, horticulture, and floriculture exhibits, 1,109 4-H static exhibits, and some proud winners in the pictures down there for their what they brought as far as animals. Fair vendor spaces, we rented out. There were 96 outside spaces. We're rented to 65 vendors. As some vendors have more than one space, some food guys have 5 different booths for different types of food. One thing I will say is we did hear some comments that they said food vendors were down. Well, that was by design. We now review and have for 2 years now every menu, and we cut back on the duplicating food items. We don't need 30 different corn dogs. We've narrowed it down to the 6 best ones, and we have our specialty booths that are there. So we cut down by design just to make sure we have the best of what product that they are actually selling. And again, there were 101 indoor vendor spaces rented with 70 vendors and multiple vendors there, and that's where we had Santa Claus for the kids to come see in the expo building. Get down to the fair expenses. You know, one of the largest expenses is entertainment, and that's a breakdown of what we spent on entertainment this year. In the grandstand, $441,000. Ground entertainment is entertainment that would be outside of the grandstand. The Bob Bone Family Fun Show, your Six Appeal Acts, Sherwin-Litton, Strolling Acts, things of that nature. Front porch is the local and regional entertainment and folks that we bring in that are local bands and everything. So those come in. Budweiser Beer Shed are the bands that play after the main stage curfews, and we have entertainment that goes later on in the night. We throw premiums in there too. Those are expenses that are paid to livestock and static exhibitors, as those are entertaining to the public as well. So total entertainment expenses were just shy of $600,000. Expenses overall, you throw administrative in there for 102, grounds of 89,000, about 104 for advertising, competitive exhibits and horse shows of 47,000. Beverage and concession cost of goods 120, and then arts, horticulture, FFA for 11,000. We had a total expenses of $1,074,881. Revenue, admission, camping, and miscellaneous a little over 507,000. Carnival 266,000. Competitive exhibits 153,000. Beverage and concession 263,000. Sponsors are up to 109,840 for total revenue of $1,308,858,000 for a net profit at the fair, and this will be $220 instead of $225 because we always get one bill late. That's why I wait so long to come in, but all of a sudden I got a $6,000 bill for some garbage yesterday. So the net result is a very rainy, successful fair. We're happy with attendance, and net profit of $220,000 roughly.
Any questions for Scott? Commissioner Kelly.
I got a couple, Scott. When you do the local bands,
yes,
you know, as fill-in and stuff, do you ask them? Do you pay them, or do you ask them to play for free? Or
we pay them.
Good. Okay. Because that's kind of been an affront to them.
Yeah.
From other governmental agencies. The second one is how the carnival. We didn't see any comparisons there. How's it been since Murphy took the show over?
The carnival actually told me that, and from their verification and audit, had about a 20% increase over last year. So when the people were there, they're spending money.
But you anticipated taking quite a bit more money with.
Well, we
Murphy
have we have a guarantee with the carnival. It's a guarantee or 30%, whichever's greater. So we haven't hit 30% being greater yet. So we have a very good guarantee, and the nice thing about our guarantee, it's not contingent on weather. Prior guarantee was contingent on 75% of the days being favorable for a carnival.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Scott? I think Commissioner Barth was probably there every day. I was there several days. I had a great time despite the rain when I was freezing and wet. But it was a good fair again this year. And so thank you for what you do, and thank you to the board for all their work.
And
I just have a quick comment.
Oh, sorry.
How do you decide which is the worst corn dog?
Well, I tell you what, when they come in frozen, and they're already with the breading on, those are no longer there. We make them mix up their breading and hand dip them and do that.
You answered my question.
So there you go.
Good to know. Good to know. Any other questions? Commissioner Barth, excuse me.
I just want to say again that Pipestone building was fantastic. It probably increased by 30% my appreciation of having fun out there, and what a donation we received with that. And talking to the Pipestone people, they said that they were having more fun with it than the same building at the Minnesota State Fair, because they get 100,000 plus visitors a day, and the thing is so packed they can't actually spend any time with individuals. With ours, they were able to really communicate with our citizens and our fair goers, and gosh, what a good time that place was.
And I will make another comment. We had fair managers and board members from North Dakota, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa, and some local South Dakota fair managers come to the fair for two main reasons: to see the carnival, because contracts are usually on a 3-year deal, and also to see that Pipestone Discovery building. There's only about 5 buildings like that across the country that are that educational. So it was nice to to get the calls to say, hey, so-and-so's on grounds. Jeremy from Clay County, which is a wonderful fair, a great reputation, and a big fair, you know, coming to see what we're doing in Sioux Falls with our fair now. So we're pretty proud of that.
Commissioner Benega, did you have a comment?
I was going to actually say what Jeff indicated was the fact that the Pipestone building was such a great addition to the campus, if you will, and that with the Nordstrom donation a few years ago. Facilities have been improving. Your financial pictures are wonderful based on the weather you had. I mean, frankly, that was a surprise when I saw them the first time, and I think that you and Joe and everybody else needs to be credited for turning that whole thing around and having a positive atmosphere and a positive financial result for the community. So thanks for your extra work, hard work.
Yeah. And, you know, we're having a lot of fun, and we want to thank you for your support as well, because you're a huge part of it. And we're feel very fortunate for the relationship that we have and how it's grown. And I think on behalf of the board and everybody, we just want to express that it's a community, it's a team effort going forward, and we're definitely on the right track. Might not be full steam all the time, but we're still moving forward.
Any other comments or questions? Thanks, Scott. Thanks for the report, and thanks for the work you're doing.
Item 13, consider a motion to authorize the chairman to sign a sub-recipient grant agreement between Minnehaha County and South Dakota Department of Health to act as fiduciary agent for management of Region 2 South Dakota Hospital Preparedness Program funds. Lynn DeYoung.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lynn DeYoung, Emergency Management. In front of you, there should be a couple different documents, but as you know, I work with the healthcare group within Minnehaha County and then our surrounding area. Each year this year gets a grant to support those efforts for their planning, training, exercising, and equipment needs within their facilities. They've also formed what's called a healthcare coalition. That coalition, like I said, is made up of those different healthcare facilities and then other stakeholders within the emergency preparedness community within our region. They have a grant in the amount of $91,176 that's given to this organization to support their processes within those areas as I included for their planning, training, and those things. This year, Minnehaha County has been asked to act as a fiduciary agent for that grant. Included within your packet, there should have been a budget for these dollars. And then a breakdown of what those dollars are for. Along in the grant packet is also an independent contractor agreement. They've hired a independent contractor to help them in the last several years with all of the needs that they have moving their group forward. So what I have in front of you is those three materials along with the grant from the state of South Dakota. And I'm requesting the Commission to authorize the Emergency Management Director to enter into the agreement with the South Dakota Department of Health and to execute the required documents for the grant and the independent contractor agreement.
Are there any questions for Lynn? Commissioner Barth?
Lynn, how long ago did this potential for a grant come into effect?
They've been working together as a group for the last 7 or 8 years and had these dollars. There's been some change with the other fiduciary agents, so we were asked to assist because we do this. This is just one of the things that we do.
So it's not in response to a current health problem?
No.
Any other questions? Commissioner Peckus?
Commissioner Barth raises an interesting question, and there was an article recently that I read regarding some questions related to who would be in charge in case there would be an epidemic or something for control of health and welfare. And if I remember right, South Dakota state law actually puts that burden on this commission. Is that correct?
I would have to look at that because, typically what we're going to do and what this coalition is there for is to make regional decisions and then move up into the state level and everything. And, if you're talking infectious disease or some of these other things, we'll rely heavily on our infectious disease doctors, which we have in town, you've seen on the media, and bring them into an EOC environment. We'll work there as far as anything that comes out of there for policy-driven decisions. I would have to look at state statute to be specific, but certainly on policy-level decisions, we would come to our policy group when quarantines and some of those other things need to be made. So I'm not exactly specific on statute, Commissioner, But of course, like I said, any policy-led decisions would need to be made by our policy makers, and that's you at the table.
Right.
Kirsten, did you have a comment on it?
He's looking something up.
Okay.
I'm just looking
Okay.
something up.
Sorry.
Any other
Sorry,
questions?
I didn't have your specific.
That's okay.
No.
Commissioner Barth?
So, we had a bit of a sort of heightened alert a couple of years back with the Mexican or swine flu issue. And so I know we learned a lot about different issues that surprised us at that time. Did you have a follow-up report on that, and is that available?
As far as lessons learned from H1N1? I'll look for one. I don't know that I had one specifically because I'm not...
I just remember there were some issues with the mass vaccinations that, that we had where we had people bring daycare groups and kids that already all had their shots.
Yep. And one of the things that this coalition does is try to plan for some of those.
Yep.
And that's what they've been doing, and they did that before. They did that before in the last several years. We worked with it, and it worked well during the last couple of years with H1N1, and this is really to plan ahead for the next incident. And we're, this is not in response to the current Ebola. This is something that's been going on for the last several years, and something that'll need to keep going on as we become a global society. You travel more, and these type of infectious diseases happen. But this group is more than just the current situation. It's a much broader group. Within the allocated budget, you'll see that there's an expense for travel to the national conference that's out in Denver. One of those things that they'll be talking about is how to keep this coalition going after the money drains, because that's important for our community too.
Commissioner Backus?
I guess I disagree with the proposal that H1N1 was handled very well, because we were on a starvation diet for H1N1 vaccine, and we had other school districts and schools outside of Minnehaha County that were completely vaccinated, and we didn't have enough to vaccinate our kids here in Sioux Falls. And I have an issue with that, because if you check any model, you go to where the population centers are, and there was no rhyme or reason why our regional center or the State Department of Health put us on a starvation diet for that kind of vaccine. So I guess, I understand the position of a regional approach, but it's my job at this table to protect our citizens, and that's where I guess I can draw a line between the state and the county. So anyway, I'm sure you all remember when that took place, for those of us that were here, but Lynn, I know that we had conversations about that. So
yep. Commissioner's exactly right. Healthcare instances are very personal to everyone in this room, and when other policy decision makers make decisions that affect us, and we don't have any influence on those decisions, it's difficult. And that was an example that Commissioner Peckus brought up. When you get healthcare policy and media all involved, sometimes the answers aren't the ones we'd like.
Any other questions for Lynn? Commissioner Barth?
I actually am going to make a motion to authorize the chair to sign the subrecipient grant agreement.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second, but Lynn, I need to ask, is it you that's signing this document or me that was questioning
I think on the actual documentation, it indicates that my name's on there.
It just says grantee signature on.
Okay,
Yep.
So I guess let's have the commission authorize both the chairperson and the emergency management director.
That's my motion.
To do that. That would probably be broad enough where we can cover it.
All right, a motion to authorize. We have a motion and a second on the table to authorize the signing of the grant between Minnehaha County and the South Dakota Department of Health. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. We'll figure it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have another question, kind of a follow-up. Governor Dugard expressed some serious concern this last August with placement of, some of our the children that were coming across the border from Mexico, and whether or not we were actually informed of whether or not those children were located, for example, in South Dakota, and where they were in fact located, whether they're within Minnehaha County or not. Has there been any sort of movement on the part of the federal government to inform the states as to where these people are located?
Not that's come through my office. And I don't know where you'd start from that. That might have to be a Ken or a Carol Muller question.
Well, it seems to me that we really need to ramp up the communication across the board, whether it be international, federal, state, or county.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Well, Madam Chair,
Commissioner Buck.
I don't think there's been any follow-up on the status of Chinese communists that came here on the EB-5 visa, and yet no one seems to be objecting to that.
All right.
Is that a political statement?
Yeah.
We're talking people coming to this country without being checked out.
Item number 14.
Item 14, consider a request to authorize use of personnel savings in the 2014 Auditor's Office budget to fund accounting package review proposal from Barry Dunn Consulting Services. Bob Litz and Monty Wattenbach.
Good morning, Commissioners. Monty Wattenbach with County IT Department. You have received the proposal from Barry Dunn in your packet that kind of outlines that project and the price for that project. But to summarize it, basically, Barry Dunn Consulting would work with the county to analyze our existing core applications, including our legacy AS400 payroll application, property tax application, highway cost accounting application, to name a few, and evaluate where we're at, what we have, and to really to kind of set a direction for us. It's not an RFP process or a product selection process, but it would allow us as a county to have an idea of what it would cost to replace some of those packages. For example, the payroll application, itself is a legacy AS400 application that would be a pretty significant project and have a price tag to it, where we could kind of create a roadmap for you as commissioners to make decisions and to properly budget for as we move forward. I feel pretty strong that this is the right action to take. If we just wait for an opportunity where we have the funding to replace some of these applications, it's not going to happen. I think if we have a roadmap where we can create a plan and properly work to budget for replacing some of these core applications, that'll give you a roadmap that we can follow.
Questions for Monty? Commissioner Benega?
I'm just going to make a general statement. I think that this is an extremely important part of our budgeting process for the future because, frankly, if you look at Monty's history with the payroll system, with the voucher streamlining, the Legal Edge software that you put together that saves the state's attorney, the public defender's office, and the public advocate's office processing time. And if we're going to continue to be faced with a budget as tight as it is, the only way that we're going to solve some of these issues is with technology, and having Monty and his staff pursue these kinds of opportunities is not only important, it's mandatory.
Yeah, and to add to that, we're going to continue to develop applications where it makes sense. But for example, the payroll is probably not something that my staff and I will tackle. It's too complex. There's several products out in the market. That'd be just a situation where we recognize that it's best to probably purchase that application. And through this process, we hope that Barry Dunn gets a feel for our skill set to also help guide where we could do some of our own application development and where it makes more sense to purchase.
Any other questions for Monty? Any questions for the auditor?
One for, what's the time frame on this?
The time frame for the consulting project, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, in the report.
I don't know that I have a time frame for
well,
that.
Then roughly, is it like...
I think it's a process that probably would take a good chunk of 5 months, I would suspect. I'm speculating.
So we're looking maybe midsummer to have the report then? Is that what it looks like?
Potentially.
Good.
Because if you kind of read through that proposal, they would set up a survey where, key staff can go and, to a website, I would suspect, and answer a series of questions to kind of get the county's take on what processes are difficult for them and what things they like and what they don't like about their core applications that they use. So there's that part of it. There's a portion where they've got a group of accountants and various different consultants with various different skill sets that will come on site and have meetings with my office, the auditor's office, register of deeds, treasurers, sheriff's office, highway, so on and so forth.
Commissioner Bennigan?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the authorization of the personnel savings in the auditor's office for the fund accounting package.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Monty.
One more thing to add.
Yep.
It's not necessarily an upfront cost. It's a cost that we can pay as we go.
Right.
So very possibly it might have to be carried over as well or what have you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 15 is a briefing relating to refunding outstanding certificates of participation, authorizing the execution and delivery of a lease purchase agreement, and approving and authorizing execution of related documents. Final action on resolution is set for October 21st. Bob Litz and Tom Grimmin.
Good morning, Commission. Bob Litz from the Auditor's Office. Bringing before you today a proposal for an advance refunding of the Series 2007A certificates of participation. We recommend the refunding should be completed in fiscal year 2014 due to a moving bond market that is affecting interest rates. The county's ability to issue bonds for any other purpose would remain unaffected. Due to the complicated placement of the refunding, the Auditor's Office is recommending a negotiated offering. On page 1 of the report is the debt service comparison that outlines the savings to the county of approximately $446,031 over a 10-year period. The Auditor's Office has a resolution crafted by Betsy Abbey, our bond counsel for the refunding. I've got Tom Grimmin here today, and he's present today to explain their role in the process.
Hi, Tom Grimmin from Doherty & Company. I think in your packet you have the refunding analysis, and on page 1 of the actual analysis, you'll see the number that Bob mentioned, the 446, and what we have there, the key here is this is not only an advance refunding, it's a crossover advance refunding, meaning that the savings, you'll pay debt service on the existing bond issue until the crossover date, and then you start paying debt service on the new bond issue. So that's why there's no savings in the early years, because your call date or crossover date is 12/1/17. That's when the savings you start to accumulate the savings from the advance refunding, from the advance crossover refunding, and that's how it accumulates to $446,000. The one key number that's important on that first page is if you go down to the net present value benefit, you see a number there of 4.923%. Typically, when you do an advance refunding, industry number is 3%. In some states, it's actually mandatory that you have to have a 3% or greater number. In Minnesota, I think it's by statute. So once we hit that threshold, even in South Dakota, we start to look at these. And of course, this is almost 5% present value savings. And the reason why that I called up the auditor and asked if I could present the numbers to him, and he agreed, and here we are today. If you'd like, I could go through the whole packet and do the whole thing if you want, or if you had any specific questions, I guess I'd just go that route, unless you want a whole explanation of refinancing 101.
I just had one question. Wasn't there an issue with the tax levies already being set for this year?
Well, I don't think there's an issue there, but I know what's going to happen here because this is an advance refunding. The levy, there would not be any levy required to make the payments on the new bonds because it is a crossover refunding. The payment on the new bonds is going to come out of the escrow that's set up. So, again, this is crossover refunding 101. You're going to set up an escrow, and in that escrow, for the next 3 years, payments are going to come out of that escrow for the new bonds. And then at the time of the crossover, you'll pay off the callable bonds on your old bonds, the 2007 bonds, the $7.49 million, and then you'll pick up the new debt service schedule at that time, and then in 2017, or actually in 16, you'll make the levy for those bonds at that time. Does that make sense?
To you.
So there's really no levy in addition to this set of bonds, because again, the escrow will make the payments on the bonds. So I don't see that being an issue unless Ken has an issue.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure we have an issue. That's one of the things, that's one of the reasons that we asked that this be a briefing and that you not take action. I mean, the fact is that, you know, we have a set levy that we're going to be levying for the going into 2015, and you know that levy is going to you know we calculate that if we continue on, and based on what we're seeing here, that we may be over levying, you know, and so the question of what do we do with those dollars until, I guess, you know, payments, that's an issue we have to discuss, and we just haven't had the time to do that when we've looked at this initial proposal. That's all. And so that's one of the reasons that we asked for it to be a briefing, because if we have to set up escrow accounts and everything else, we need to know that before we would go into this. And that's all.
Okay. Commissioner Benega?
How much is in the escrow account now?
Well, you know, by our initial figures, you know, based on the schedules that we have, we would have $770,818 quote over levy in that based on the payments and that we see here on debt service. So, and Darlene can maybe answer a few more questions concerning that. You know, I'm not saying that this is not a worthwhile deal, not by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that we do have some questions procedurally how we need to set this up, you know, before we would go forward and bring the actual resolution to you.
Okay. This is a briefing, so are there any other questions for Ken or Tom?
I have one question.
Commissioner Barth.
Tom, it's good to see you. Will, is this in any way dependent on Federal Reserve interest rates and stuff? I mean, they're talking about, you know, going the wrong way on interest rates as far as borrowing.
They are, and when I first approached the auditor, that was more, I guess, urgent. Now there's talk that, you know, now we're looking at June maybe of next year before they start to raise interest rates.
Okay.
You know, they were talking about February time period, January, February time period, so there seemed to be a little bit more desire to move. We are, if you look at where rates were at, probably the high point after the 45-year low point in May of 2013, we've seen, we probably hit the high point in September of 2013, and since September, with, you know, with some jagged edges in there, we've seen a downward trend. And but again, there's more pressure for upward movement than there is downward movement, and again, so you're just interest rate risk. You're exposing yourself to interest rate risk if you delay it. Now, again, the escrow, what we talked about there, again, the levies you have set in place now will make payments on the bonds. There wouldn't be a need to change anything right now because the new bonds, they get paid out of the escrow account. And this would not be any different than previous refundings that we've done. I've talked to bond counsel, and bond counsel doesn't see an issue with this at all. I mean, we've done refundings. Maybe this is just a question that just never surfaced before, but it seems to be that these bonds are refinancing. State law allows you to refinance and to apply those proceeds to the new bond issue. You don't need to, you know, it isn't like we need a whole new, even though it's a new series of bonds, it's basically the same action you took back in 2007 to establish those funds, or the same action. You're not reestablishing a new action. At least that's the way I understand it. I'm not an attorney. Commissioner Peckus.
I'm sorry, I was reading something. Can you repeat it?
No, I'm just saying that you're serious. All right. I mean, the action you took in 2007, there's no additional new action. In essence, you have the option to refinance your bonds. So it isn't like we're reissuing new bonds or starting a new whole account, a whole redemption fund. It's just a continuation of the original 2007 issue.
Yeah, and I guess The way I would understand, it's kind of like a novation that we, of course, learned way back in the day. But yeah, I would agree with that.
Right. So again, I mean, we can talk some more in the next week or so, just to make Ken happy and Darlene happy and make sure everybody's happy. I mean, I want everybody to be happy. But anyway, I throw that out there. But I don't think that's an issue. It really isn't. You're not over levying, believe me.
Okay.
Question.
Commissioner Benega.
I think, Tom, I'd feel more comfortable if we had a written legal opinion about that was approved, to be able to, have a new series of bonds and not have to go back and redo all of that.
Okay. I think the documents and will take care of that, but I can ask bond counsel to, their best effort there to put out some kind of documentation to that.
Okay. Commissioner Kelly.
Maybe you've already answered this. There's no change in the final payoff date of. I mean, this bond doesn't extend it out.
No extension at all.
We'll stay with it, right? And okay, and then no, I forgot the second one. Maybe that answered my question there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nope.
Any other questions? This was just a briefing. We brought back on October 21st. So, all right. Thank you,
All
Tom.
right. Thank you.
Item 16 is consider motions to approve actions related to the disposition of tax deed properties. Bob Litz.
Good morning again, Commission. Bob Litz from the Auditor's Office. And before we get started here, I'd like to have a point of order. Perhaps the chair or our civil attorney could answer that. Do we want to handle these things one at a time, or do you want me to go through them all and then back up?
What would you like to do? Just one at a time and make a motion on them as we go through? I think that'd be the easiest.
Try to keep it cleanest,
Yep.
separately.
One at a time.
Very good. Thank you. I think that's the best choice. This year's tax deed surplus property appraisal board is attached and shows the board values as well as the recommended dispositions. Today we have a total of 5 actions requested for the tax deed property dispositions. The first one would be to accept the findings of the appraisal board report.
Is there a motion to accept the findings?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. Any questions for Mr. Litz? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That is a motion to accept the appraisal board's report.
Very good. Item number 2 is to declare RDID numbers 11897, 24029, 82442, 29650, 20569, 50507, and 25890 as surplus for sale at public auction, and approve the minimum bid amounts for these properties and authorize the auditor to publish notice of public auction on November 15th, 2014 at 10 a.m.
Any questions for Bob on those properties? Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to declare those properties as surplus for auction, and the date being set. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3, to declare RDIDs number 67315, 82385, and 80603 as surplus for transfer to the City of Sioux Falls for drainage, and approve resolution authorizing the county treasurer to issue a quit claim deed and authorizing the auditor to abate all outstanding taxes, interest, and penalties levied against these properties.
Any questions? I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to declare the listed RDIDs for surplus for the City of Sioux Falls for drainage areas. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4, to authorize the auditor to proceed with negotiations with CCOG and the Southeastern Development Foundation for disposition of 3 properties, RDID 29683, 43925, and 28812, as recommended by the appraisal board. And as a side note, Lynn was here for another item, and I was wondering if I might have a little privilege, let her come forward and explain to you what the reason that they would like to have these properties. Would that be okay?
Yep, that'd be great.
Very good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Good morning again.
The relationship that we are proposing today would be very similar to what you've had in the past. In the past, I think you've given certain lots to the city, and they in turn have given them over to Affordable Housing Solutions for redevelopment in the neighborhoods. So it would be similar to that situation. We're going to kind of skip a step and ask that you just donate those properties directly to the Southeastern Development Foundation. We've been working on this for probably a little bit over a year. Quite frankly, we were hoping that private developers would step in, but these aren't always in in the best locations, and so the Southeastern Development Foundation would almost serve as more of a nonprofit developer. We have secured funding through the South Dakota Housing Opportunity Fund through South Dakota Housing to do a pilot project for up to 5 governor's houses.
Ben, could you speak up a little bit, please?
Is that better?
Yeah.
Closer? Okay. We've been approved through South Dakota Housing for up to a pilot project to do up to 5 governor's houses. If you've been following it at all, there is a new 3-bedroom option. So our thought would be that we would put 3-bedroom houses on these lots with a garage without a basement, trying to keep them right around that $100,000 range, and really trying to fill kind of a niche of affordable housing and to get them back on the tax lots as soon as possible. I have recently hired Bill Hansen, who was the Economic Development Director for the City of Centerville. He has pretty extensive housing experience, so I'm excited to have him on board to help oversee this. And for those of you that know Bill, you know that he will do a great job for us as well. Our goal probably would be to do maybe 2 or 3 of them next year, and then probably, depending on how fast we get those sold, to turn them around and do another 2 or 3 the following year. Houses for the 3-bedroom are pretty popular, and they're out over 200 and some days now when you order them. So the sooner that we can get these transferred over into our name, then we're ready to go ahead and order the houses and get those ready. Hopefully by next spring we could get started on some of these. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Lynn? I have a question for Bob. I'm just wondering why we're just negotiating, authorizing to proceed with negotiations with CCOG when they're a nonprofit, and this would be the same thing that we did with the City of Sioux Falls last year when we gave them several properties without negotiation, and then they were given to housing redevelopment. So I'm wondering why we're just not approving the transfer.
Well, I'd like to defer to Kirsten.
Okay, that's fine.
No, that's fine.
I just have a question.
Yeah, and then just to clarify this process, of course, state statute empowers you as a county commission to take property that you're holding by tax deed or whatever the status is and do a gratuitous transfer. Includes 501c3 organizations, which the foundation qualifies. When you take up a vote on this, the only thing that's different about this is it must be a unanimous vote to do a gratuitous transfer such as this. Otherwise, tax deed properties proceed to auction, sealed bid, and brokerage, I believe, are the options otherwise. But this would be a gratuitous transfer as I understand how it's being presented. So a unanimous vote is required.
Commissioner Kelly.
When these properties are, you're going to sell them, right, Len? No. You're going to hold them?
We would develop them,
yeah,
and then we would sell them.
Okay.
And we're not taking any developer's fee. I want to be very clear on that. On this one, because it's a pilot program and because we just kind of wanted to get our feet wet and see how it would go, the Southeastern Development Foundation is not charging anything or taking any kind of a development fee on these at all.
But once you do that, they come back on the tax rolls, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And the proceeds for the sales go back into what the expenses have been.
That's correct. They'll just make the Southeastern Development Foundation, and part of the funds that we got from South Dakota Housing were loan funds, and so we'll just revolve those, and at the end, then we'll pay them back to them.
Okay. Any other questions for Lynn? Kirsten, did you have a comment?
Yeah, and just one more point of clarification. If you do adopt a resolution under that statute, you just have to make it so with the explicit finding that's in the best interest of the public to do so.
Any other questions for Lynn or Mr. Litz? I'm looking for a motion either for the auditor to proceed with negotiations or to transfer them as surplus to CCOG. Ken, excuse me. I was going to say Commissioner Barth. So.
No, one of the things I just confirm what Kirsten did. I mean, if we're going to do this as a donation to the nonprofit with certain conditions, and that I would strongly advise that we do that by resolution that outlines, that yes, it includes these conditions, the abatement of taxes and all of that stuff, and then we can certainly bring it back to you, and again, with the caveat that it is for. It requires a unanimous vote. There was just a number of things associated with this that we thought you should know in advance and that prior to taking such an action. And we'll have all the dollar amounts, calculated for each of the properties so that you know exactly what you are approving, and we would recommend we do that by a written resolution.
Okay. So this week we would just authorize.
Ken, what would your preferred method be?
authorize the auditor to proceed with negotiations.
And then what we will do, and then we could bring it forward even as early as next week when we can craft the resolution and have it ready to go. So we will not have much of a time delay on this at all if that's what you want to do.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Litz? Commissioner Barth?
Bob, this isn't on the CCOG transfer, but on the transfer to Sioux Falls. I'm looking at one of the properties, which is 6.9 acres, and it says under assessed value acquired by the city on 8/29 of 11. And it also says that the taxes owing are $25,511. How does it get that big of a tax owed on it when it's valued at $400?
The board had reappraised that at $400, and so that we may give it to the city for the value of that. Anything under $500.
So is this like a marsh or an acreage?
This is it is. Two parts are real low underwater. There's no access to it, and then somebody else has piled up a huge berm of dirt on there as well. It's going to take significant work to get that dirt out of there too. If there's no access to the property, it backs up to a large water retention pond.
We're back to item D, which is I need a motion to authorize the auditor to proceed with negotiations with CCOG.
That's my motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Lynn has pointed out that we'd like to do that to Southeastern Development Foundation.
Okay, Southeastern Development Foundation.
Yes.
That's the nonprofit part of CCOG.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Then the last item is actually a little bit of good news here. Payment has been received from the former owner of record for all taxes, interest, penalties, and county fees for the amount of $8,559.11 for tax deed number 2480RD-ID 48067. Action requested is to approve the resolution restoring the tax deed.
Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to restore the tax deed for record ID number 2480. All those in favor say, was that right? Record ID 488067. Now, do I have the right number? Okay.
48067.
Yep. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Item 17, consider a motion to approve change order number 1 for a deduct of $30,313.40 to the contract with McLaughlin and Schultz for Project SEAL 2014. Jason Reeves.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jason Reeves, Senior Project Engineer at the Highway Department. Just another paperwork finalization for our chip seal project, which is about 43 miles of work on the west side of the county this summer. Filing it out with our contractor. These are just based on all actual field measured quantities. It's only about 3% of the job, but it is still $30,000 that we did save on the job, and just looking for authorization to sign the change order.
Any questions for Mr. Reeves or a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the change order number 1. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Item 18, consider a motion to supplement $651,355.80 from the Highway Fund to various ASNs in the highway budget, representing reimbursements from the state of South Dakota for the annual allocation of Federal Surface Transportation Program funds, City of Crooks, Weed and Pest Program, Claims Insurance, and Minnehaha Conservation District. Shannon Schultz.
Good morning, Commissioner. Shannon Schultz, Assistant Highway Superintendent. Highway Department. So these are 7 accounts, as Cindy read, totaling $651,355.80 as a budget supplement. DJ Boothie prepared this memorandum for your review and approval request, and I can try and answer any questions I have.
Are there any questions for Shannon?
Make a motion to make that supplement to those funds.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for the supplement of $651,355.80 to the Highway Fund. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you,
Madam Chair, I
Shannon.
have a question for Shannon.
All right.
Shannon, I happen to be driving around the county a little more lately. I wonder if you could look at the Renner Corner intersection and look at making the stop signs on the Renner Road more definitive. I had a request from Dean Sorum yesterday saying that there's been a large number of accidents there. And, you know, they were suggesting, he and his cousin, that it should be the flashing type thing, but maybe you could look at the records on crashes there. And that's right where we just asked the state to do a speed study, and they said it's fine. But anyway,
Certainly.
I appreciate it.
We do review accidents on a yearly basis. It takes a while for it to get into the system and then back to us in a GIS format. So that would more than likely come up on a radar, but we can do it now.
Thank you.
Okay. And I want to say thank you, Shannon, for stepping up on mowing. I saw that they've at least started on the west side now. I know they hadn't done it before, and there's a lot of areas now that have been mowed in my area. So thank you.
The mowers were down, and it's hard when it's good weather for growing weeds and other crops. Yes, so we're making headway.
Making progress. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 19 is to authorize the chairman to sign a jail master plan contract between Minnehaha County and TSP. Robert Wilson.
Good morning, Commissioners. Robert Wilson of the Commission Office. Last month, both the County Building Committee and the Criminal Justice Advisory Committee recommended to this commission that you accept the proposal from TSP for jail master planning and related services at a cost of $87,000 plus reimbursables. The commission accepted that recommendation at that point, and since that time we have been moving forward with the planning process and getting that process underway. This today for your consideration is just the actual contract based on that recommendation and that approval that was given last month. So I would stand by for any questions, but we're just looking for your approval of the actual contract this morning. And I would point out that the State Attorney's Office has reviewed the contract.
Okay. Are there any questions for Robert or Kirsten on this?
Move approval of the chairman to sign the jail master plan contract.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Item 20 is Minnehaha County Commissioner Liaison Reports.
I was just going to mention, Monty had already left about the program that he's been working on. He sent us an email this last week that they're going to be up and running today with the public advocate and public defenders case management plan that they've been working on. This was a project we worked on for a long time with an outside vendor and just didn't seem to be coming together, and we tasked our own IT department to bring it together, and they have done a fabulous job with a new product. Just goes to say what excellent employees we have in our IT department. So I wish Monty was here to speak about it, but I didn't want to make him stay. So thank you to the IT people. Any other liaison reports? Commissioner Garth?
Yeah. I had a meeting last week down with Lincoln County and City of Sioux Falls regarding our GIS, and we're moving forward with some ideas to possibly get all three governments working with the same GIS system. And I think we were talking about that pictometry. Yeah. And one of the things that the Lincoln County Commission was really interested in is the fact that, you know, if we could formulate that into our CAD system with one of the modules we could plug in, you could get a 360 view of a potential property, which of course would benefit law enforcement because they all have, you know, hard books in their patrol vehicles. So that was actually one item of interest that they did not know, and so the City of Sioux Falls and of course Minnehaha County, we've been working hand in glove on that quite some time, and they were very interested in that.
Any Commissioner
I just want to say, you know, last week or so I was out there by Wall Lake looking at the address signs. Now I've been up the Arrow Stater Road and Highway 115, and those signs are just white. That were blue. They're just absolutely white. There's no way you can read them at 60 miles an hour. And certainly if I was in emergency business for fire, ambulance, or police, I would be upset. I think we need to take some action on this.
I'll chime in on Jeff's stance there too, and he's right. I've been looking. Mine faces south, and mine is still perfect. That being said, my green sign is still up, and my green sign is still perfect. So I'm not quite sure why we changed from blue to green. But when you start looking at other people's signs, Most of those blue signs that I have looked at, you cannot read them anymore, and they haven't been up that many years. So I don't know what you need to look at or what we need to look at, but I think it is an issue if you can't even read the signs anymore. So
I can explain why we went from blue from green. The reason was that was a request by emergency personnel that when they're traveling in the summer months, the green has a tendency to blend into the background, but blue stands out.
Well, it doesn't stand out anymore.
It
you
doesn't
cannot
stand out
see
anymore.
it.
That's correct.
It's gone. It's white. So, any other liaison reports? Okay. Is there any
new business?
Any new business? Number 22, is there any old business? Seeing none, I'd look for adjournment into executive session for personnel.
So moved. Second.
There a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Meeting adjourned.